Hello everybody. Today is Monday. It is. I hope you're all doing well. Come on in and join the crazy. It's a crazy day, of course. Aren't we all? Aren't they all? Don't we all just run amok? Galena, hello. How are you? I haven't seen your name in the chat for a long time. It's good to see you. Hope you're doing okay. How are your kids doing? You have what, 3 children now? Seems like, am I remembering that right, or maybe not? Hello, Linda. Greetings to Tim also. Hope he's had a good day today. Tell him I hope his garden is growing like a house afire. I was going to say growing like weeds, but that wouldn't be good for a garden. They're getting big. 4 now. You have an 11-month-old. Oh, Galena, wow. 11-month-old. I bet that one's keeping you busy. They probably all are. What ages are they now? Hi, Tori. Come on in. We're just going to wait a minute till people kind of have a chance to wander in. Hello, Connie. We're going to, if all goes well, we're going to have a drawing tonight for a giveaway. So hang around because we'll do it toward the end, not at the end, but toward the end. Hi, Barbara Clark. Quit your job. No more toxicity. Good for you. 16, 7, 3, and 11 months. Wow. I remember when your 16-year-old was, what, 5 or 6 or younger? Hey, Peggy. Welcome in. Welcome in. She was 5. See, that's just crazy, isn't it? Yeah, I remember that, sort of, kind of. She must be a junior in high school now. Galena and I go back a long way. A long time ago. We've been knowing each other for a long time. So, come on in. I want to show you a magazine, first of all, while we're just waiting. Hopefully my throat, excuse me, cooperates. Tonight I have been doing better. But the dust, you know, when you're moving and cleaning stuff up and all that, you just make dust, that's all. Oh, your divorce was finalized. Good for you, Galena. Good for you. That has to be a huge, excuse me, has to be a huge relief. Huge relief. Anyway, I want to show you this magazine. And this magazine, you might know about it, you might not. But I wanted to share it with you. I don't think I shared it with you the other day. If you're into fiber arts at all, this is not like quilting arts, which is a really nice kind of, Quilting Arts magazine kind of bridges the quilt world and the fiber world and all of that kind of thing. Just ignoring people when they do that stuff to you is a good policy. Hello, Starla. So anyway, this one is more of bridges more over into the fine art kinds of things, and so I just thought I'd show you some of this. And I subscribe to this. I think I saw it on Instagram. I'm not real sure. Anyway, I think I saw it on Instagram at one point. And so I thought, oh, what the heck, I'll try it. And it's really quite inspiring magazine. It had inspiration for color, as well as process, as well as you look at things and you go, well, I never thought about that. Like, this is screen printing. And Jane Dunewald is the author of this article. Jane Dunewald is quite a well-known fabric artist, and so she wrote this article about Becky Bright. And all of these fabrics back here have been screen printed. She started out screen printing them herself, and then she contracted with, I think it's in England, a business in England to do the screen printing. And she does, what I thought was really interesting about this is, let's see if I can find it's a screen printing firm in London. Although she used to have all of the yardage, because she does yardage for, like upholstery and home deck and that kind of thing. She couldn't do everything by herself, and so she contracted with the firm in London. And this is what I thought was funny. She laughed when she described taking a new design to the printing studio. They always say that can never be done. It will never work. But I always tell them to do it anyway because I know it will, and it does. And I think that that's something that's valuable for all of us to remember as creative people, that if somebody says, that's ugly, I don't like it, I don't know why you would do that, I don't know why you make stuff like that, what do you do with that, what are you going to do with that, any of those kinds of comments that could make you doubt yourself, if you just come back with, well, I like it, I know it'll work, whatever the comeback is, just have a line ready to say and say it back to them, and then let their words just roll off your back like water off a duck back. Hello, Rhonda and Gray. Good to see you. Hi, Jenny. You got here at the beginning. Good for you. Thank you, Shelley. Here I am talking to you guys like I muted it because I had coughed. Sorry, we'll go back to this. We'll go back here. And so these pieces are, as I was saying before I muted myself, this one's called Saffron and this one's called Queen. And these are painted with acrylic paint. and usually on wet canvas to allow serendipitous flow. Anyway, interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. And there's another one. And here she is painting. Thanks for cueing me on that. And here's another one. This is Barbara Delaney. Oh, by Barbara Delaney. Sorry, this is about Roberta Wagner. But these are small pieces, small collages. I love to see the pictures of their spaces and their idea books. See, idea books, sketchbooks. But look at this. Anyway, I'll just flip the book a little bit, just fan through it, just so you can kind of get an idea. And this was Timeless Themes in Monumental Scale. Look at these. Look at this. This is a frog sitting in a chair. These people are knitting this. Designing the future. So here are young people learning to work with fiber and sewing, boys included. You know, sometimes guys really get into sewing machines because they're mechanical, they're machines. So encourage your young people to get into exploring. Okay, this is from the front cover. So here's the front cover. So here is inspiration from that. The frog is enormous. It is. I can't even, so here's more of that surface texture. I can't even think in scales like that, you know, that huge scale. Here's more of it from this same artist, from this. Anyway, Fiber Art Now. I have no stake in this company. I have no stake in the magazine. I have nothing to do with it other than I have several issues of it. It comes out, I think it's 4 times a year. It is not the cheapest thing. It's not the cheapest magazine, but there are, I think there are no ads in it. Yeah, there's no advertising in it. It is absolutely 100% inspiration. So there you go. Put that in your repertoire of things that you might enjoy. Okay. So a couple of times ago, I showed you something, and I think it was one of my journals or something, and I was trying to tell you about this artist that I had found. He was, I bought his cards from a local business here called Blue Stem, which is an artist. They have artwork, or at least they used to when they started. I don't know what their policy is now, but they had artwork from artists in Missouri and the surrounding states. I don't know what they have now, but anyway, that's where I found this guy's work that I just thoroughly enjoyed. And I wanted to show this to you because I couldn't remember the guy's name, and I could not remember, but you know, I just couldn't remember his name or where I found a lot of this inspiration. But I love his stories. They're called Story People. His name is Brian Andreas, Andreas. They're called Story People. And this is one of the cards. There was a set of cards. I've given away most of them, but I found these 2 the other day that I had squirreled away in my art stuff so that I wouldn't give them away. So this was one of my favorite quotes of his, or stories. In my dream, the angel shrugged and said, "If we fail this time, it will be a failure of imagination." And then she placed the world quietly in the palm of my hand. But I just love that story. Brian Andreas he's from Decorah, Iowa, at least at the time that these came out. This is from 2000, so who knows where he is now. The work of U.S. artist, author, and storyteller Brian Andreas is well known for its clarity and exuberance and heart. The stories in books, colorful prints, and sculptures can be found around the world in fine galleries and stores or on the web exclusively at storypeople.com. And this is the other one that I saved. She said she usually cried at least once a day, not because she was sad, but because the world was so beautiful and life was so short. Yeah. Enough said. Okay, so I thought I would show those to you since I found them. And last time we worked on this collage, this fabric collage and applique, collage fabrics together to make that. And I thought, well, actually it goes this way around. I thought, I'll show you the fabric collages that I was describing to you. I took them down from my studio and thought I would show them to you. So I have them, I had these hanging on over some doors this is fishing line, nylon fishing line. So I had these hanging over some doors in my studio. So these are studies in color. They happen to be with dealing with the energy centers of the body. And so this is the violet one. They are collaged backgrounds similar to what this is, except they're a lot more involved. They have Angelina fibers, there are trims, there are silk flowers that are taken apart, like this part of this silk flower from another bloom I incorporated in the back because violet and gold are part of this. This is sequin fabric that you can sew on the sewing machine. There is surface texture. This is machine couched cording on top, and then I added buttons and beads and words that were important to me. This is another silk flower back here. So I'm gonna put it up here real close so you can get an idea. There's lots and lots and lots of pieces of fabric in those in the back. And various buttons, like this was, I think, a button that was a shank button, so I clipped off the shank and with a pair of wire cutters and put it so it's more flat. And then this is a freestanding silk flower that I stitched on with this button that worked for me. Anyway, they're put on a backing of the stiff craft felt. That's what's behind them. After the work is done, all the machine stitching and everything is all done. All of the surface embellishment is done. I've stitched on the words, which I printed out on printer fabric and sewed to the surface. Then I put the whole thing on a piece of stiff felt and then put a piece of black fabric, black on black, on the back, wrapped it to the front, turned it under, mitered the corners, and hand stitched it down. Okay, so that's the whole. Hey, Devin. So that is the process behind that. So there's that one. I won't go in as much detail on these, but this is indigo. And this one had yarn that, I explored texture as well as color on a lot of these. But always with buttons. There's crystals or beads. This is cheap beads. You could buy it by the yard. I don't know if you still can, but you could then. And so these were navy blue, that beaded stuff. So I couched that on by machine. And I don't know, that's the whole thing. This is a silk flower. So that was the indigo color. This is the blue one, and lots of cording on this. This is a piece of zipper tape, like a piece of, extra piece of zipper that I'd cut off. This one has a lot of cording, and a lot of Angelina fiber. All the sparkly stuff is Angelina fiber, and just a bunch of leftover beads that I had, and lots and lots of couching on this one. Anyway, but they're all finished exactly the same way, and all of them have the fishing line in different lengths to go on my doors. Thank you. This one's the green one. This one incorporated a bunch of things like produce bags. That's what this netting type thing is. That is something I bought limes in, I believe. There's silk flower leaves back here. Again, lots more couching, lots of beads. This one, some of the beads are pretty big. You can see the amount of how they stand away from the surface. Anyway, there's that one. This is the yellow one. This is a porcelain button that a friend of mine made. I stitched a lot of stars into the surface of this. And this is more of those beads, bead chain, you know, like beaded chain like you put on a light fixture. That's what that is. And if you have the right foot and use a zigzag stitch, you can do that on your machine. I love this gold cording. Somebody gave me a spool of that gold cording, and it's not elastic. And I'll tell you, I will be so sad when it runs out because I have used that so much. This one has little tiny buttons. This is a tiny little polymer clay alarm clock. It's the cutest thing for the O. Anyway, that's the yellow one. Here's the orange one. This one, this was the second. The red one's the first one I did. The orange one was the second one I did. So they got progressively more complex as I went through the process. So I should have shown them to you in the other way, but you know, this is the order I picked them up in. So lots of different pieces of orange fabric, lots and lots. Orange, this is an orange piece of silk flower I took apart. There's more of it. So lots of surface couching things on top of the collage after the collage was all stitched. And this is the red one. And this was I think a silk rose I took apart. It had gold edging. My nemesis is glitter, and that had glitter around the edges, which has gradually come off. This has metallic rickrack, lots more fibers. This one's pretty flat by comparison, and this is just a wad of a spiral of rat tail cording, satin rat tail cording. I just wound up and stitched. And this was a shank button that I stitched on, left the shank on. After that, I figured out I needed to cut those off to get rid of the texture. Anyway, so there's that. Okay, so that's kind of the basis for what we were doing on this, and it's kind of the inspiration for all of the different collage art, fiber art things that I do. That it started with these. So I will find some place here in my space to put them up. Another thing that I thought I would show you real quickly, and this will be the end of showing. Couching is where you lay down a fiber that you can't stitch through a sewing machine, or you can't stitch by hand. So you lay it on the surface of your fabric, and then you either stitch over it by hand to hold it down, or you zigzag stitch it, or use some kind of machine stitch on the surface to stitch over it. So couching is a matter of stitching over something else. Okay? So one of the things that I used to do, I used to teach a lot of in-person classes, and I took these are all samples from my in-person class. I don't know that I ever did a class online with this. I probably should, since I have all the samples, but I had them hanging up. You're welcome. I had them hanging up in my other studio space, and so I took them off the wall yesterday, so I thought I'll show them to you. So this is all about applique, and that's what we're doing here. We made a fabric piece, so it's a fabric collage, to make a little fabric bloom, kind of like a sunflower, suggestion of a sunflower. And so an applique is a process of taking one thing and applying it to something else. So you can do applique in all different kinds of ways. You can do surface applique, reverse applique. You can do all different kinds of things. And oh, thank Devin. Thank you. So this is what I want to show you. Here are the samples from my applique class, which I had hanging. Let's see. Let me get this in a little tighter. They're fairly good sized pieces. Okay, close enough. Close enough. Okay. So this is machine applique using a buttonhole stitch on the sewing machine, not by hand, but by machine. This is machine stitched on the back onto this after everything was done. So the Sunbonnet Girl was done. The background, she was quilted, and then I did the thread painting back here. This was done with a foot called the flower stitch foot that makes those little stitched flowers. And I guess that was done before I quilted it, because I can see the quilting around it. Anyway, it's been a while since I did these. The trim is different sizes of rickrack and different textures of rickrack. Like there's a baby yellow rickrack down here, and then a blue. This is like an embroidered rickrack. This is just a big jumbo cheap piece of rickrack, and this is like a chenille textured rickrack up here. So there you can see the back. I just put muslin on the backs of all of them, I think. Well, we'll see if I did on all of them. I don't remember for sure. But I stitched around the rickrack to hold it on and so forth. So anyway, this is machine applique with the machine buttonhole stitch. Okay. This one is machine applique. This is stitched by machine. Everything, this was a sewing machine dealer I was working with, and so everything I did were techniques on the sewing machine. So this is put on by sewing machine using invisible thread and the hem stitch. So it mimics hand stitched applique, but it is not. It is done by the sewing machine, and then using a variegated thread to quilt around it so you can see the quilting. Sometimes I did it so the quilting was, very visible on the back, so because it made for more of an impact with teaching. And this one is, all of these are samples of applique. All right. This one is raw edge. The fabric edges are left raw. This is free motion zigzag. Okay, this is free motion zigzag out here to hold it on. The fabric is left to ravel and do whatever it wants to do. This is free motion zigzag over lace to make the leaf. So it's zigzagged, and you can do free motion stitching with either a straight stitch or zigzag. And that's what this one is. And then this is satin stitch. This is just a satin stitch to create the stems. And then I added some beads for, you know, spreading the color around a little bit. So there's that one. And we have some glue on the back to hold the knots in place. So I have no problem putting glue where I need to put it. All right, this one hangs on point like this. And this guy, I think, was inspired from a magazine, as I recall. The snowman part of it is actually flannel, and this is ultra suede. His nose is ultra suede. These were buttons, and this one was, again, with the machine applique using the blind hem stitch. So that's what this one is. This is silk out here for the one of the borders. This is just cotton. So this was kind of a variety of using different kinds of fibers and combining them, encouraging people not to just stay with one thing. You don't have to stay with just cotton. You don't have to stay with just wool. You can combine wool and flannel and cotton and silk and whatever you want to, whatever works. Okay, this one is done with, this is ultra suede. So this is ultra suede. Hi Terry, did I say hi to you already? Anyway, I'm glad you're all here. This is ultra suede. So ultra suede is a poured fabric. It is 100% synthetic, and it is a chemical process, and they pour it out, and that's how it's made. And it's an incredible fabric. The closest thing you get to any other kind of fabric is felt, but felt is very, very different than ultra suede. Ultra suede is very expensive. Comes in a couple of different weights, the regular weight, and also a lightweight called facile or easy. Facile stands for easy. And this is done with, I matched the threads to the applique pieces, and it's done with a little tiny zigzag. I don't know if you can see that. Tiny little zigzag stitch to applique that down. And this is a Pennsylvania Dutch sort of design. All of the quilting on all of them is done with a walking foot. And there's that one. And then this is the last sample that I have to show you. And this one was kind of a mask sort of thing, and this is all done with fabrics that used to be very popular. It's called Quilter's Cotton Lame, and there are two types of this fabric. One is real hard to work with because it's largely synthetic. This one has cotton in it as well as metallic, but it's more cotton than the metallic. Oh, that's neat, Terry. And then I used gold threads and a lot of metallic threads, and then also some of the variegated King Tut threads. It's just like whatever I thought was going to work to do that. And then I quilted around all the features and quilted around the hair, the suggestion of hair. And then it is put on, this was appliqued onto a background of silk. So this is called Silk Dupioni. It has a slub thread running throughout. And this was free motion quilting on this one. So this was just kind of make it up as I went along. And this one I put a wild background on the back, and this was, I don't know where I found this. Somebody could have given it to me, but it is highly metallic, and but it was a cotton fabric that had all of this metal look on it, and it just seemed to go with it, so that's what I used. But this one's appliqued on silk. Okay, so that's your crash course in applique. And this applique that I just showed you, that's done also with the buttonhole stitch on the sewing machine. The regular buttonhole stitch that machines have. You can adjust, you don't have to just do buttonholes with a buttonhole stitch. You can adjust the width and length and apply things like that. All right, so where we last left off, I think that's the last thing I had to show you. And so where we left off is here, and I've trimmed this down. I've trimmed it to 8 inches across by 10 1/4 in length. That just happens to be the size that I could make out of it. I put this on a piece of canvas. This is like canvas drop cloth. And then we created this little collage of fabrics on a piece of stabilizer, cutaway stabilizer. So both of these have netting over them. This one, or not netting, sorry, tulle. This one has black tulle over it. If you look real closely, you can probably see some of it. So this has black tulle, like the kind of stuff that ballerinas' skirts are made out of, tutus are made out of, as opposed to netting, or bridal veils are many times made out of tulle. This one has yellow tulle over it so that I could keep the yellows and golds and oranges nice and bright. Hey, Beth. So that is what's going to go on here. Now, you can't just have a flower plunked on a background. And so I created a collage of green fabric. And that's what we have here. This is a piece of, it was only 3 pieces of green. I had 3 chunks, scraps of green fabric. Okay, I wish you could see my sewing room right now. No, I don't, because I don't want you to see it, because it's really awful. And although I have organized everything as I've moved it from one space to the other, once you put it in a room and you start stacking boxes on boxes on boxes, you lose track of what's in what. It doesn't make any difference if it's labeled. And half the time I've recycled boxes, and so I didn't label them accurately. You get the drift. So I was lucky to find 3 pieces of green fabric. And so I found it. And that's what we used. Okay, so for this piece, this has a piece of just cutaway stabilizer on the back. It's a heavyweight stabilizer like you would use for embroidery. I put the collage of greens on there. I used regular old glue stick to glue stick them down. And on this one, I told you about rainbow organza, which is what is over this. And so I brought it in here to show you what it looks like. If you have it in a wad, you can see the rainbow. Okay, so it's rainbow organza. When I find this, I will buy it in 5 or 10 yards. Because I use it a lot. I love it for so many different applications. It's not expensive. I usually find it at Hobby Lobby. And I do too, Jenny. I absolutely too. Yeah, glue stick, absolutely. Hey, Dana. So this is rainbow organza. When you put it over your fabrics, you can either choose the section you want, which is what I did here. I chose the part that had yellow, blue, there was yellow, green, blue, and then there was some purple. And when you lay it over your fabrics, it does the same thing that the tulle does. It holds everything in place, but it offers a different, not only different texture, but it offers a different kind of shading aspect to what you have under it. Okay. I'm not using very much glue, Devin, at all. I mean, I'm doing just a little touch here and there. So if it gets gummy, if you just take an alcohol wipe or some rubbing alcohol in a swab, you can go down the needle. Don't go up the needle because you will snag your finger on the point of the needle, but rub it down the needle from the shaft to the point, and it'll clean the sticky residue off. Ah, good, Beth. Good for you. She said she made her very first paper fabric journal with me. Oh, that's neat. That's great. Okay, so hopefully you can kind of get the picture of the rainbow. Once it's spread out, the color is diffused, and so you don't see all of that mass of color. When you look at it wadded up here on my desk, you go, oh no, that'll never work. I'm not going to use that. Well, you should try it, right? You should try it. Connie's trying to find things. Ugh, yeah, trying to find things is just a pain. It's a pain. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to stitch this, and then we're going to make a stem and some leaves, and we're going to see if we can applique this on tonight onto this background and applique on the bloom. We'll see how far we get. I'm not sure how far we'll get, but we're going to try it, okay? And Race may be here after a while to help, hopefully, with the drawing. That is the hope, okay? All right, so let me get my sewing machine here. All right, sewing machine at the ready, and I need to change thread, color of thread. This is what I mean by going down the shaft of the needle, and if you just use an alcohol wipe or some alcohol, it will take the residue off of your needle. All right, we're going to use this thread. This is King Tut 924. This is my very favorite color, but I say that about several spools, several different colorways of King Tut because I love it so much. I used to be able to find it locally. Now I have to order it, which I just hate doing. But, you know, it is what it is. Not everybody supplies the stuff that I need all the time. Fortunately, I invested in quite a stock of King Tut thread back in the day, so I'm still okay. All right, so free motion, I'm set up for free motion stitching, and we're just gonna stitch this puppy kind of quickly. All right, I think I'm ready to go here. When you are stitching, I'm going to start in the middle of my piece. When you're stitching, free motion stitching, make sure you put your presser foot down. If you don't, thread is not in the tension discs. Your upper thread is not in the tension discs, and it will just wad up and make a horrible mess on the back of your work, otherwise known as thread puke. All right, so let me get my pin out of the way. So I'm just doing a little knot there, a few stitches in place, then I can cut off the tails of my thread. All right, here we go. Let's just see what happens. by having the top fabric, a sheer fabric on the top, it will hold all the little flippy edges down, because you can't glue stick them all down, and I don't like to layer up fused fabric in as many layers as this has, because I find that obnoxious. Alright, I'm going to stitch around the edge here until I get to the middle. When you are stitching, free motion stitching, this is like the paper. The needle is like the pen, and the thread is like the ink. You're moving the paper under the pen in paper terms. So if you can think about that, it makes a little more sense, usually. And all I'm doing here is just kind of anchoring the outer fabric down, or the top fabric down. And even though I've already stitched this, I'm going to stitch over it again. It's just fine. Don't worry about restitching something. I've allowed hopefully enough excess fabric that I won't be using these edges. But this just helps to anchor everything in place, and then you can start stitching in the middle. I use the smallest needle that I can. The King Tut thread asks to be stitched with a 90-14 needle. I use a needle that's smaller than that if I can get away with it, because I want to poke the smallest holes in stuff that I can. And so, but if for some reason the thread starts acting up and it's not behaving, stitching properly on the back and that kind of thing, then I'll try switching needles, or just put in a new needle. Sometimes your needle's dull, you just need a new one. Now these fabrics like tulle and organza are squirrely, which means that they move around. They have a life and a mind of their own, and if you'll just do this where you kind of anchor it down, it really does help. Okay, so I've got everything stitched in place. Okay, any questions so far? I don't see any. If you want, if there is a question that you have, be sure you put it in caps. I'll be more likely to see it. All right, here we go. So now we're just gonna start. I'm just gonna doodle. It doesn't make any difference to me what it is I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna doodle stitch on this, okay? And it's okay to stop and take a break. You don't have to just go and go and go, and you don't have to stitch with your machine at top speed either. And you can stitch going forward or backward or side to side. You have, it's kind of like there's no rules in free motion stitching, other than you got to keep the machine moving. Don't move the fabric without. I find it easier to stitch toward myself, so that's why I do that. I don't need to do that. It's just preference. Don't try and move the fabric too fast. the more evenly you can stitch, the more your stitch length will be consistent. But does it really matter? Not so much. I also find that my visibility is greater when I'm stitching toward myself. If I'm going backwards, for whatever reason, my brain doesn't think that way very well. But then that's not unusual. My brain just doesn't think in certain ways, and I just have to learn to go, okay, got it. Just as other people need to give you some grace for being human, you need to give yourself grace for being human. Oop. Lost my bobbin thread. Either that or I ran out. We're going to find out which. Yeah, for some reason it decided we're going to just go to another bobbin. It was getting toward the end and I think it caught on something, so we're just going to switch to another thread because I have one threaded up. I'm stitching on a Bernina 1230, which is a very old machine now. It is a workhorse of a machine. If this ever dies, I'm going to be incredibly sad. Let me just say that. Yeah. It is an amazing machine. Let's see, where do I want to go? Here. Let's go over here. Since I've stopped, I'll just come over here and I'll just start again. Okay, so I'm going to bring up the bobbin thread since I had to stop. I pull up the bobbin thread, otherwise you get thread puke on the back, almost guaranteed. And then I make sure your presser foot's down. And I'm putting the threads under the foot. And different machine companies have different looking free motion feet. And I'm just stitching a few stitches so I can cut off the tails. Because you can get thread puke on the top of your work, and that's worse than on the back. And every time I start to do machine stitching like this, it takes me a while before, even if I did it this morning and I'm doing it now, I will end up having to take some time to get my rhythm going. And you know what? Don't worry about it. Like Dina Wakley says, you gotta make, she makes puke on a page and then she cuts it up. She says it always looks good when you cut it up. Fabric collages like that. Okay, so I just did some kind of leafy looking shapes, and I'm going to probably come in here because there's a lot of space in some of these sections, so I'm going to just kind of echo that again. Just because I think if you have space, you should have something in it, something filling it up. And who knows how much of this will show? It does not matter. Now, the one thing you have to watch when you're doing free motion stitching is you have to watch that your hand stays out of the way. Okay? Keep your hand back, because it's real easy when you get real tense to get your fingers too close to that needle. And it is possible to stitch your fingers. I have done it before. And it's a real bad thing. It's a real bad thing. Okay, let's do this one. It's always okay to stop and take a breath. It's fine. You don't have to stitch like your hair was on fire, okay? You just don't. And sometimes my hand and my brain don't want to work together. And you know what? I just don't worry about that. I just absolutely do not worry about that. So you can see kind of what's going on. I'm just doodling with the sewing machine. All right, let's see here. I also have a mat that goes on here that is made of silicone. It's called the Supreme Slider, but it's not in this room. It's down the hall. And I would have to stop and go see if I could find it. But what it does, it has a silicone surface. It's very slick. And there's silicone on one side and plastic, I think, on the other, or something, or Teflon maybe. Anyway, it's real slick, and so it allows your fabric art to just glide, and it's really good to do that. An alternative to that is to use something like Pledge, furniture polish stuff, and polish your surface of your table surface. I don't like to do that because I don't like, first of all, I don't like the smell. Second of all, I don't like the chemicals in the air. Anyway, there you go. So we're going to kind of limp along a little bit because I should have brought that in here, but I didn't. And it's always fine to stop, and because you will tend to hold your breath while you're doing this, so it's always fine to just stop and take a breath. And then just sometimes I just need to stop and go, okay, where am I? Because it's easy to get lost in what you're doing, and it's okay. Just don't worry about it. Alright, so we're going to do this one. We're almost done. And when you are free motion stitching, as hard as it is, you want to try to look where you're going, not where you are. I don't know if any of you here have ever ridden a motorcycle, but I did. I spent lots of time, many hours riding a motorcycle. I'm a licensed motorcyclist myself, although I have not ridden a motorcycle myself in a long time. But you need to look where you're going, not where you are, because if you look where you are, you'll fall over. And that is the way. That's the law of motorcycles. Okay. It's kind of the law of free motion stitching. I've done it a few times. I've done it a few times. Okay, so let's take a look at this now. Alright, so here is what I just stitched for you. So you can look at it any number of ways. It's just kind of got a different vibe than the other one has. And I don't know if you can tell, but there is some color influence from the sparkle organza. Not sparkle, rainbow. Sorry, rainbow. So I'm just going to get rid of the edges just because it makes it a little easier not to get confused by the stuff that's going on out in the outer edge. Now I drew out tentative shapes on some tracing paper, which is what I have here. You haven't ridden a boat. No, I'm not really a daredevil, but I used to do that back in the day. The first motorcycle trip we ever took, or not the first, well, one of the first trips we ever took, Race was less than a year old, and we strapped him to one of us, and we were riding together. We just strapped him to us and put a box of, back then we used Love's, when we traveled, we used Love's diapers, disposable diapers. I always used cloth diapers, except when I was either going to church or traveling. And so we strapped a box of diapers to the back of the motorcycle, and away we went. You know, when you're young, you can get away with doing stupid. So all I'm doing here is just kind of cutting out this is just going to help me visualize a little bit better. I could freehand cut this stuff, and these are suggestive of, I'm just going to cut this off. These are suggestions of sunflower leaves. They're not, this is the artist license type of sunflower leaf here, and stem. Let me just go on up. Can't let this be too thin in the stem area, because if it's too thin, it's going to be pretty tough to stitch it down. So I'm not going to let the stem be real wimpy. I have it, let it have a little bit of heft to it. And because I'm working with a collage of fabric, which is multiple pieces, layers of fabric and stitching and so forth, I'm not going to make the outer edges too textured, you know, and jagged and that kind of thing. I'm glad you like the leafy pattern. That's cool. I'm glad. So I've got 3 different sizes of leaves here. All right, and a stem. Just dropped a scrap on the floor that I was trying to pick up, and tracing paper is not known for its visibility. All right, so we're gonna, let's cut out, well, let's see, where do we want the stem? First of all, let's, all right, we're just gonna go for it. We are just gonna go for it. All right, too much trouble to follow the pattern, so I'm just gonna wing it now. All right, so we have a stem of sorts that is subject to, I may move it around or what have you. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this over this way, and I'm going to use a pin. This is the wrong side of my collage fabric. I'm just going to draw around this, and I'm going to give myself a longer stem than I think I want. And you could do this, I mean, to some extent I'm doing this without being able to see it, but I did kind of look at it and then flipped it over. But this way I don't have to worry about having the ink marks show, because I'm on the back. I'm on the back of my fabric. I'm sorry about the little bell on my scissors. I usually pull it off before I stream, but I forgot to take it off. It is literally called a scissor bell, and its purpose is so that when you are in a class, when you hear the bell ring, because not everybody has a scissor bell, when you hear the bell ring and you're not cutting with your own scissors, somebody's got your scissors. So it's a way for you to kind of keep track of, okay, do I want this way? I think I want it this way. It doesn't really matter, Barb. It really doesn't matter. Just put it down, draw around it, cut it out. It doesn't matter. One year, a long time ago, I went to a couple of times I went to the went to Houston, Texas, to the quilt festival and market. The market was first, the festival was second. And that was a neat experience, because then you could walk around and see all the different new products that were available, and the scissor bells were a big hit. But boy, can they drive people nuts. Okay, there's one. Two. All right, let's see. Let's do one more leaf. This one. Let's do this one. All right. It didn't really matter. Let's do this one down here, like so. Again, if you have questions, put them in caps in the chat. And I will look and answer questions here in a minute. Okay, so we have, hey Ruth, a new one on you, the scissor bell. See it? I mean, it's got a fancy little braided doodah on it. I only bought one of them. It is kind of a nice, not all bells have a nice sound to them. This one does have kind of a nice sound. But sometimes it even annoys me, and it's my scissor bell. I don't know. It seemed like I think maybe I had two of them. I don't remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter. All right, so I still have a chunk of my collage fabric left and some scraps, but I am doing my best to throw the scraps away these days, because scraps can overwhelm you. Okay, so here is our collage background. There is our bloom, which is going to kind of go in this orientation. And let's put a stem on here, like, kind of like so. After I kind of get going here, I will I may, if I can get this glue to come out of this thing, I may use it. Nope, it's not going to come out of that one. I may just put a little bit of tacky glue on this to glue it down. All right, so there is that. I'm thinking we'll put this leaf maybe up here, maybe this one, or maybe we'll do this. No, we'll put this one over here. We'll put this one down, coming from down low. And it could even come over the stem a little bit. That'll work. That would be okay. And then maybe we'll let this one just kind of something on that order, perhaps. Okay. So I'm going to just stick a little bit of tacky glue on the back of this. And I'm going to put this one up here like so. And I'm going to glue this one right about in here. And I'm just putting the tacky glue on just to kind of tack it, literally tack it in place. Okay? Okay. Now, we're going to take this off and we're going to lift this up. Put that stem right there. Okay, hold it in place there. Down here it doesn't matter, that can get cut off, but this, we don't want the leaf stem sticking out beyond the stem, so I'm just going to lift, bring it forward, cut off some, and then put it back under. Okay, for a moment I'm going to put this over here. And I'm going to put a tiny dab of tacky glue to hold that, a little bit to hold this. I have some stuck on my fingernails, so I'm going to add that to hold it right there. And then let's see how our stem is coming along. Okay, the glue is dripping out of my container, so I'm going to take advantage of just using my finger to kind of stick it down. Okay, and put a little glue right there just to let this leaf, I want this leaf to kind of stick over the stem just a little bit. Okay? All right, let's get the glue cleaned up because I'm making a real mess with the glue, so let's clean that up. Normally I work with glue stick or a much finer tipped glue bottle, but my some days it works. Some days you're the statue and some days you're the bird, right? Which has nothing to do with anything. Okay. All right, hopefully the glue is tacking up according to its name, tacky glue. And then I'm going to whack these stems off down here at the bottom. And and then here is where the bloom is going to live. Okay? And this, I'm going to to come up a little bit more. Good enough. Okay, we're going to take this off because we have to stick this down or stitch this down first. And you can see how all the work that I did stitching, you know, doing all the fancy stitching on here doesn't show in these little leaves and things, but it does give it some texture that is different from either the background or from this. Okay. All right, let's stitch down this applique. Now, for this, I'm going to go back to a regular presser foot. So I'm going to use an applique presser foot, which means that I have to engage the feed dogs. I'm going to use the green thread, same thread that I used to, well, let's see, do I want to do that? Now let's, for Drins, let's change to a different color of green, just because we can. Because I have it, and because we can. Always thread your machine with your presser foot up. Always. No matter what kind of stitching you're doing, thread with your presser foot up. There we go. Okay. Now what I'm going to do to stitch these in place is a tiny zigzag. Okay, I'm going to do a 1.5 in width or a little bit less and a 1 in length. And let me just test that and see if that's what I want. No, I want 1.5 in length and a little bit more than 1.5 in width. Okay. Okay, that'll get us what we need. Now, because I am using regular stitching now, I'm not using free motion. I should not have to worry about bringing the bobbin thread up. Watch, it'll make thread puke on me and then I'll be upset that I didn't, but you know, it is what it is. Alright, so I'm going to do the leaves first. One stitch on the applique and the other stitch right beside it. This requires patience and not going too fast. And I took my knee lift off. Bad idea. My knee lift controls my presser foot, and then I'm going to gently turn it. You have to have patience, and you can't go too fast when you're doing this around tight curves. When you get in a straightaway, you can go quicker. When you get to a point, you kind of have to finesse the point with your stitching. So I am going to stitch in the point of that leaf to make sure I stitched it down. And then I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to Make sure that I'm stitching on the applique so it doesn't stitch over the tiny point of that leaf. When you're going around a tight curve, you'll need to do one stitch at a time. I'm sorry if my head gets in your way, but I gotta see what I'm doing here. Find my little scissors. Here we go. And then I'm just going to drop my feed dogs and stitch in place a couple of stitches, and that should lock it. Okay. Then I'm just going to move over to the other leaf right here. I'll trim the thread in a little bit. Hold on just a second. Race needs me to do something. Sorry guys, hang on just a minute. Race needs me to approve something. Okay, I gotta kind of keep an eye on that because I'm not sure what it is he wants me to do. Now in these little skinny areas like the stems and the points of the leaves, sometimes the stitching wants to come undone, but most of the time it will, you'll be able to stitch over it. And it'll catch it. And if not, the whole thing's stitched down anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Need the approval to log in. Okay, hold on a minute. I gotta find the thing that he's asking me to do. Okay. If you guys will hang on just a minute, I'm going to let you watch the machine, although nothing's going to happen. I'm going to mute you. I'll try to remember to unmute, but I'm going to have to call him and ask him what it is I'm supposed to do. Okay? I'll be right back. Okay, you guys hear me now? Can you hear me? Thumb up? Yes? Okay, good. Okay. Okay, I can't find what it is he wants, so we're going to do it a different way. So maybe one of the mods can help me here in a little bit instead. Alright, here we go. So let's finish going around here. What time is it? 7:34. We should be able to at least get the green part done. Okay, so we got the second leaf done. And we're going to come over to the last little leaf right here. And let's just clip this top thread. I'm going to leave the bottom thread attached. It doesn't really matter. Should be okay. And we're going to stitch the bottom, or the last leaf, down closer to the bottom of the piece. And then we'll stitch the stem. When I get, when I'm really concentrating on what I'm doing, then I get real quiet because I'm watching. So sorry about that. Okay, now all I have left to do is to stitch up and down the sides of the stem, and I'm gonna just pull this, let's see, where did I just quit? Right there. I'm gonna pull this top thread to the back. And now we're going to stitch the stem down. I don't want to stitch on top of this leaf, so I'll show you how I'm going to do that. Okay, so I'm going to stop just short of that, the edge of that leaf. I'm going to switch to a straight stitch. and I'm going to stitch around that leaf with a straight stitch. Okay, so I've stitched around it, and I'm going to go back to the zigzag, reposition my machine, and stitch the rest of the stem. This part's covered up here by the bloom, so it doesn't matter how accurate it is. And stitch down the other side. Good enough. Good enough, good enough, good enough. That way I didn't have to break the thread, and so I've stitched this as a zigzag around it and a little straight stitch right around the edge of that leaf, but leaving the leaf on top of the stem. Okay? Does it make sense? Then I'll go back, and all of these places where there's a little bit of some of the threads wanting to pop up, I may come back and put just a tiny little dab of tacky glue, or I may just, you know, who knows, I'll secure the threads so that we don't have all these hairy little places here that you might or might not see. Okay, let's go quickly so we get this done. Oh, she's 10. Aw, that's really neat. Tell her thank you for watching. All right, I'm going to switch to the yellow thread. Press her foot up. So this is King Tut. It's also a variegated yellow. And I'm just going to get the machine threaded. Then we'll reposition and put the flower bloom on the stem. And I may add some hand stitching to some of this also. It's hard to say. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. Okay. So let's look at it from above. I'll clip off the rest of that little stem there. Okay, so here is our piece. Here's going to be our bloom. So we're going to just kind of figure out which way we want it tilted. This is going to be the center of the flower. That's a piece of jewelry that belonged to my mom that she deemed useless, and so she wasn't using it anymore, so she put it in a junk jewelry box and gave it to me. And this is a great way to use a piece of jewelry like that without ruining it, because I can just pin it on. And then if I ever decide to do something else with it, I can do that by not taking the pin back off of it. Okay, I think that looks all right. And so again, I'm going to get the tacky glue, because I'm only going to stitch around the outside edge of this. And so all I want to do is add a little bit of glue here in the, not close to the edge, just kind of in the center section. Like so. Okay. So that's going to be our Did Ray show up? Oh, he got in. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, so tell you what. Are you ready to do the drawing race or no? You let me know. I can stitch the rest of this applique if that would be helpful, give you more time. I don't know. Okay, let me go ahead and stitch this on while he's quick test drawing. Okay, so he's gonna do, okay, here's how it's gonna work. Here's what's gonna happen, you guys. I showed these the other day. I have several of them. We're gonna randomly give these away. I'll send them to you wherever you are. I went on Friday in detail as to what they were. They're just little journals that I made. And so, okay, that's a test. That's a test that he did, okay? That's a test. All right, so here's what's going to happen. We're going to do this. Race is, and it's a journal. It has a bookmark in it. The fabric is hand painted and painted on the jelly plate. Each one of them also has a watercolor quote type thing inspired by Joanne Sharp. The papers, the end papers, are also done on the jelly plate and so forth. There's hands sewn together. They have a little tag on the outside, and that's that. Okay? All right. So, Race, when you're ready, you tell me, and we will do the giveaway. You can text me or tell me. It's it's a professional operation over here, folks. Very professional. Okay. You will need to type the word journal to enter the drawing, okay? There is not a time limit until we cut you off. So, you have to put that word in the chat. One word, and that's all you need to put in, okay? So you guys go ahead to be in the drawing. You type in the word journal, okay? This is only for the live audience. Can't do it after the fact. It's just for the people that are here. All right. So we're going to give you, okay, Race is going to give you 1 more minute, okay? So the clock is ticking. If you want to enter, you do have to be a subscriber, but you all know that. And type in the word journal, okay? So he's counting down. Race is my son, in case you guys don't know. I'm sure you know. And it doesn't matter how many times you type it in, it's only going to count once. Oh, multiple entries are okay. All right. It doesn't matter. Go ahead and do it. Countdown's on. Yeah. The Jeopardy song is now playing. And anybody, I don't care where you are, I will send it to you wherever you are. I won't promise how quick I'll get it to you, but hopefully I'll get it to you fairly quickly. There you go. Jenny typed in the Jeopardy song. 20 more seconds, you guys. Anybody else want to put in the word journal? Go ahead. This is the one we're giving away tonight. Okay, this is the one. Jelly plate printed fabric. It's a hardback book that I took the guts out of and put watercolor paper or a mixed media paper inside instead. Okay, Race cut it off. All right. Orange is your favorite color. Oh, that's neat. That's neat. I like orange too. All right. And the winner is, and this is all being done by Nightbot, and it's totally impartial. Congratulations, Race Owen, you won the giveaway. Race, you can't participate. Race, you cannot participate. I know you don't want it. You don't like my journals. Catherine? Okay, Catherine Borbax. That one really counted. Okay, Catherine, what I need you to do is I need you to get your address to me. I may or may not have it, and so you need to get it to me. The best way for you to do that is to go to HowToGetCreative.com and fill out a support ticket and just say journal winner and give me your mailing address. That's all you have to say. Okay? So I put your name on here, and all I need is your address, and I'll get it in the mail for you. Okay? Good. I'm so happy for you. That's great. Thank you, Race. I appreciate you so much for doing that and being persistent. Okay, we're going to finish up stitching this little sunflower sort of bloom on here. Okay? Thank you, Rhonda. Okay, we're going to go back to the machine one more time. And we're going to stitch in this little flower bloom. Okay, here we go. Nope, that's it. Oh, he's probably not listening. He asked me if there were any more. Okay, here we go. So let's go back now. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to use the same stitch setup. We're going to use a zigzag stitch, feed dogs up, and we're ready to stitch this on. I'm just going to go around the outside edge of this bloom. Okay, I'm just checking to make sure that my everything is still okay with my settings, and here we go. Now, this is going to have to take a little bit of time because we got all these pointy parts of the petals. Forgot to put my knee lift back in. Here we go. Taken care of. So the pointy part of the petal, I'm going to really zoom in here, and I'm going to have to put my machine over a little bit. And hopefully my, whoops, wrong way, sorry. Hopefully my head does not get in the way with you. So I've got it over here. The stitch has stitched into the petal. I'm going to, on the outswing of the needle, I'm going to let that needle come right over that point. Can you see that little stitch there? And then I'm going to bring the needle back up, and I'm going to raise my presser foot just a little bit, put the needle back in the same little hole that it was a second ago, and now I'm going to turn my piece, and then I'm going to slowly stitch around the rest of this petal. Okay, in the area between the petals, I need to do the same thing. So I need to do an extra stitch. So I'm kind of doing a little fudge factor with my machine because I want to control where that needle stitches. And so I'm going pretty slow, and I'm going to come back in right in the center part of that, the pointy part of the petal. So this is slow go, and I know it is, but this is how you can avoid stitching by hand if you don't want to. You could also stitch it by hand. There's no law against stitching by hand. Hand applique is a perfectly great thing to do. Okay, so another pointy petal. I'm going to come out, and I'm going to come back, and because this fabric is pretty close, and some of these little edges are just really small, and so sometimes they want to fray a little bit. That's what the fabric, that's what the extra stitching helps you do, is helps to reinforce that. And I'm going to stop here in just a minute because there's no reason for you to watch me do this whole entire flower, because it's going to be at this speed that I'm showing you. But that's how I'm going to get the result that I'm happy with. So let me do one more petal. So let me come over here. I'm going to come in that where the petals come together. I'm going to go slowly, slow, slow, slow. This is, think of the tortoise and the hare. This is the tortoise. This is the tortoise way of doing this. You got to go slow. Accuracy counts here. So I'm going to go back in the same hole I came out of, turn, and stitch. Okay? And then I'm going to stitch out here into the outer part of the fabric, and then I'm going to stop, and then I'm going to show you what we've done. And I can pull that bobbin thread, or the top thread, to the back of the fabric just by, okay, where am I? Here's my thread. See that little yellow loop right there? That's the top thread. Then I can just pull that loop, and that'll pull that top thread right to the back. I can do the same thing with this one up here. So here's my bobbin thread. Pull it. It'll bring the yellow loop to the back and pull it right through. So now my threads are on the back, and I can knot them by hand. Okay, you get, that's nice and close. You should be able to see that well. So I started here, and I stitched around those petals to right there, and I stopped right there. Okay? It doesn't work itself. The 1230 does not. No sewing machine works itself. Darn it. I don't know why that is, that they don't work all by themselves. And I don't mind doing this kind of fiddly stuff. There it is from a distance. So the part I stitched is right here. Okay, so it's right along here. Okay, there you go. So we'll see what I decide to do to it next. Will we put some crystals on it, or some beads, or will we do nothing? Or will we put some words on it that I have, this scrap of fabric that has words on it? Will we put that on? I don't know. I don't know. I'm making it up as I go along. Thanks. Well, we'll get it finished on Friday for sure. We will. We will. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you coming, and Catherine will look for your address just to make sure that I get it. And congratulations for winning. Thanks everybody for playing. I have several more journals. I'll probably give one away again on Friday, depending on whether Race can help me. It just helps so much to have somebody in the background do the drawing part for me. And Nightbot is totally impartial, so that's great. Okay, with that being said, I'm going to take off. Thank you for being here tonight, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, night, week, weekend, whenever you're watching. Thanks for coming. If you're not watching live, come join us live on Friday afternoons, 2 p.m. Eastern, or Monday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern. And who knows what we'll do. I'm slowly going through my stash of projects that I have had stashed all over my studio that I'm now collecting and organizing. So you're getting the benefit of organization, hopefully. All right, I will see you on Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And until then, remember to get creative today because you know it's easy. Be kind to somebody. Do something nice for somebody else. And you'll be glad you did, and they will too. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.